Brian, welcome back to the Mea Culpa podcast. Great to have you. Lots going on. We're going to get straight into it because not more than a short while ago, we're beginning to hear the after effects, of course, of the confirmation hearing of dear old Pete Hegseth, who is basically nominated for Secretary of the Department of Defense. And that nomination by Trump's team, by his transition team, has obviously drawn very sharp partisan lines, which you were able to see during that hearing.
Yeah.
Do you believe that his confirmation reflects a broader effort by Senate Republicans to reshape the judiciary and government in Trump's image? Or do you think this is just another polarizing political play?
It could be both. At the end of the day, of course, he wants to reshape, the judiciary in his image, the legislature in his image, the executive branch in his image, all transactional, all about money, all about Donnie. That's what he wants. Oh, and by the way, it's a pleasure to be here, Michael. Forgot to say thanks for having me. But and at the same time, it is polarizing, and it's the tip of the spear. If he gets in, right, then they believe it'll be easier to get Gabbard and Kennedy in, and that will. I think the one that may not get in is Gabbard, but I think Hegseth is definitely headed for, confirmation, despite whatever, intolerable differences he has with the rest of humanity, including some really creepy, tattoos. So God bless him.
But look, as I watched the entire confirmation hearing, there are a couple things that obviously stood out to me as somebody who has gone through that process of being attacked and lauded 7 different times. I appeared for 7 congressional hearings. My hearings each lasted 9 hours. Pete Hegseth's, 4 hours. My topics were whether or not Donald Trump got his pecker pulled by a porn star and the payment of the $130,000. No.
3 times.
Yeah, right. This is important to note. My hearing was whether or not Trump was involved in any business relationships with Russia at the time of 2016. Whether or not Donald Trump overvalued his assets and undervalued them for tax purposes. All of this extremely, extremely relevant and important. Pete Hegseth, who is nominated to run the single largest agency, maybe in the world, definitively here in the United States, a $900 billion, let me say it again, $900 billion, that's B with a B, a billion, with a B, $900 billion agency of 4 million people, 4 hours. How do you rationalize something like that when not every Democratic or Republican senator had an opportunity to ask him a single question?
Well, let's be honest. If you're going to bring rationality and logic into it, we might as well stop the conversation now. Pete Hegseth says he's an open book, and that's true. He has no experience. He's completely unqualified. He's a rage alcoholic. He's a philanderer. He's a sex abuser. We should read that open book as a cautionary tale, and God help us all if he's confirmed. But the point is you're not going to get Pete Hegseth. You're not going to get what we need. And I blame the Democrats and the Republicans for this. The one party has no heart. One party has no head. Why are we even considering him? Well, Donald Trump set him up, right? And now set him up, put him there, and he's the one who recommended him and nominated him. And there's no one in the Republican Party who will stand up to this. It's not about the Constitution. It's about fealty to Donnie. And the Democrats have got to point it out and do it. Now, they did a fairly decent job, I thought, in But to your, in pointing out his foibles, but to your point, this should have been a more in-depth view of the man. This should have spent more time doing it, and they should have dug in. And instead of pontificating, which is one of the things that the Democrats, well, all of Congress does. It's like watching, a bad priest. If they just go on and on and on. Pointed questions, treat it more like a jury situation. They're the prosecutor, we're the jury, he's the defendant. And hit him with questions, but the art of asking questions is very, very, very rare in Congress to do it right.
But Hegseth didn't answer the question. So, for example, like Liz Cheney turned around, not Liz Cheney, Kristen Gillibrand was asking yes or no. There were multiple Democratic members of the Senate that said yes or no. And he would go on and talk about something else. He would have prepared speeches. Whoever prepared him.
Why was that allowed?
Right. But it should not have been allowed. But he was very well prepared, even to the extent of being humanized by somebody like Mark Wayne Mullen. I mean, I was blown away how Mark Wayne Mullen managed to humanize him by bringing reality into play, which is how many of you here that are taking this high road, which they all do. They're all extremely, extremely, devout. He turns around and says, how many of you have had affairs and have had improper relations? How many of you have come to this house to vote intoxicated? Now, Michael Cohen, in 1987 and 88, I worked for Congressman Joe Moakley of Massachusetts when I was in college, my junior and senior year. And the big joke was which senator or which Congress member was going to be throwing up first, because they were regularly shit-faced. Well, it's true. And by the way, look, Brian, you've been on the Hill how many years now?
40.
More than two decades?
Yeah.
All right.
Of them.
Let me ask you a question. Have you seen more than 10 members of Congress drunk?
Oh, what? At one time, or in one afternoon, or in 1 year?
I'm talking about over time.
Oh, I've seen that many drunk in one meeting, one subcommittee meeting. How do you think some of them leave the subcommittee meeting? They had a liquid. Look, they used to have a bar that the Democrats and Republicans would share space with, and I think it got closed during the Reagan administration. But they would go up there and fraternize, get drunk, go down for votes. We hate you. Go back up in the bar, drink. I love you, and tell jokes. That was the way. But that's also the way they got a lot of stuff passed, because they were so damn drunk. They'd agree with each other. They don't do that anymore. Maybe they need to drink more.
I don't know. So Pete Hegseth may be onto something here. But let me then ask you this, because the partisan divides in the Senate, they seem more entrenched than ever. And what saddened me, and I really mean it, because obviously all of these nominees, all of them, I believe, will ultimately be confirmed. It appears to me that the Senate Republicans have no spine, that they are going to capitulate to whatever Donald Trump wants. And by the way, I'm going to say something that may shock you. I believe that every president has the right to choose his cabinet. I believe every president has the right to choose them, whether you think that they're qualified or not. He has that right, because when that person fails, it's on him. And that's the mistake of the transition team. They don't seem to understand that if Pete Hegseth fails, and I hope he doesn't, by the way, I hope that what Donald Trump is trying to show us is that something that Mark Wayne Mullen turned around and said, what qualifications do any of you have? It's not like you went to senatorial school, that you learned skills in high school or college or law school that would make you into senators. You got nominated by the party. You won an election. All of a sudden, you're a senator. And now through osmosis, you all seem to have this innate knowledge of what it means to be a senator. The same way that you think that anybody has the ability to be the secretary for the Department of Defense. One thing you have to acknowledge is Pete Hegseth is smart, that he is, and he knows his machinery. That I can tell you. You
And
know,
he's a
he
dead ringer
knows.
for Thanos. He looks just like Thanos.
Well,
So,
yes. Well,
Josh Brolin
there
is
you
him.
go.
He's the cheap Josh Brolin.
But do you see any path forward for bipartisanship? Or have these hearings solidified a long-term shift into gridlock politics?
That's a really good question. I always have hope because, I first started covering Congress really in '84, and it was a different animal back then. And you would see Tip O'Neill just level President Reagan, just level him. And then they would go back and he'd say, look, he's my political opponent, not an enemy, but an opponent between 9 and 5. After 5 o'clock were two Irishmen having drinks. And boy, they both would sit back and tell some stories. And so that has changed. And I believe Newt Gingrich, and that was the big shift. And now they look at each other as enemies instead of cohorts. Bipartisanship occurs. The last good example of bipartisanship, without a doubt, was the infrastructure bill that got passed in the first days of the Biden administration. He knew how to manipulate the machinery. He knew how to appeal to the Republicans, going, look, this will put your guys in your districts back to work. Look, and people voted for that out of self-interest. There is a path for bipartisanship, but it doesn't occur when both sides engage in rhetoric that is damning of the other to the point where you create anger to the point that no one wants to work together. And again, I kind of joke, but they used to get together and have a drink or two together. They used to socialize together. Now they don't at all. And in fact, some of them don't even show up. They never see a Democrat if they're a Republican. They have so gerrymandered districts that there are no Democrats in Republican districts, no Republicans in Democratic districts. How the hell do you want to get along? The best path to this is for the Democrats have the best shot at it. And it's something that Tip O'Neill did. If you ever read his biography called A Man of the House, he talks about when the Democrats lost, right, the majority, Sam Rayburn told him to go out and recruit people to run. What Tip did, instead of going and going, who's the best Democrat, he went to the different districts and said, okay, who's the most popular guy in your district? Is it that car salesman? Is it the high school football coach? Who is it? Didn't matter if they were Republican or Democrat. He said, if you run, we will get you elected. There are some issues that we want you to support us on, but you support your district the way you see fit. And man, the Democrats cleaned up. And at that point in time, in the 60s and the 70s, that's where the Democrats really shined. They were the big tent party. Now you don't see that from either one. Everyone is off into their subset culture of, far right, far left, and the rest of us are sitting in the middle going, what the hell happened to our representation? So there is a chance for it, but I don't think you're going to see it as long as both parties continue to fight the way they do. And I fault both. Now, the Republicans, I always say, it used to be, I disagree with what you say, but we'll defend it. That's your right to say it. Today, Republicans say, I disagree with what you say, and so screw you, I'll kill you. The Democrats will say, I disagree with what you say, I'll cancel you. So there's a severity between the two of them. I would like to see us get a little more to the middle. And that this election proved that. You're absolutely right. Donald Trump deserves whoever he wants in those positions. By God, I wish him the best of luck. Now, knowing a lot of these people, as you do, we kind of can both see it's not going to end up the best for a lot of Americans. But that is up to the Democrats to point it out.
So let me jump in and say something here, because we've been following a playbook. Democrats have, Republicans have, for as long as at least both of us are alive. It's the same fucking playbook. It's why, by the way, why Kamala Harris lost. Wrong fucking playbook when you're fighting against somebody like Donald Trump. You need to revamp. Yes. Right. Okay. Yes. So when Trump comes in and he says the Department of Justice is fucked up, the Department of Education is fucked up, the Department of Defense is fucked up, this department is fucked up, that department is fucked up, I want to shake the shit up. I want to shake the coconut out of the tree. And the only way to do that is to put different type of people in positions that you wouldn't think are the right person for that position, but they're smart. They've been smart in their own industry, and they will be able to shake it up as an outsider. I'll give you an example. John Phelan, who is somebody I know for over 2 decades. I know him longer, much longer than I even know Trump. He was Michael Dell's money manager. Brilliant, brilliant guy. Legitimately, brilliant money guy. He's making him into the Secretary of the Navy. He never served. He's never served in the military. The closest he ever came to a boat is probably a 180-foot yacht. How does that translate into running for this? Other than he will study the needed role like nobody's business. And my point is, he is an unconventional nominee. But what if they all do great, Brian? What if they do great?
I hope they do.
Well, that's right. But then Donald Trump will then have changed politics and the way politics in America agree to that too. What's your take on that?
But the point is, it's not. And I'm all for shaking it up. They want to shake it up and burn it down. I think it needs to be shaken up, and the right people need to become involved. The government of, by, and for the people is not run by the people, and it doesn't help out Donald Trump. Look, he rode a populist whirlwind into office. He cannot harness that whirlwind, and in fact, it's threatening to get away from him already. The assassination of Brian Thompson, or the murder of Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Health, shows that people are not real happy, and the young people in particular are really shook up and upset because for the first time in our lifetimes, our children cannot look forward to a better future than we have. That was always one of the things that we gave our kids. It's when I was growing up, my mom and dad, I want better for you. I could buy a home. I could buy a car. I had health care. For the kids today, that's damn near impossible with prices. Now, Donald Trump has put 11 billionaires in power in his new cabinet. I don't think that that's the right message to send to the populist movement that brought you into office. And the pushback with healthcare shows that if they don't harness this quickly, it could blow up in their face. And I don't want that. But I've been sitting here warning people for a while. Watch and look at the issues. Watch and look at the people they put in, and watch and look at what's going on in the opposition. And both to that point, both the Democrats and Republicans exist in a bubble inside the D.C. area and do not understand. The Democrats still don't understand why they lost. They still
and they refuse. And they refuse to even listen as to why. I reached out early on and said, your messaging sucks. You're on the wrong message. They were like, well, this is what we're going to do. And I was like, then you're going to lose. Then Kamala Harris became the nominee, and I reached out to her. Michael Cohen could not get a call back from anyone to explain to them how it is that you need to fight Trump. And if there's anybody that knows how to do it, it's me.
Right. And they ghosted reporters, then blamed us. Donald Trump at least was screw you.
Ballsy enough.
He was, screw you, you're the enemy of the people. And he still talked to us. The Biden administration told us how we were the important part of the equation and completely ignored us. Reporters will tell you, hands down, every single reporter that covered the White House for the last 4 years will tell you that the Biden administration was the absolute worst at communicating with the press, and they never understood.
And yet he accomplished so much.
They know it. That's the thing, problem, Michael. The idea, for example, that the reason why we are the envy of the world in the economy, that right there, that infrastructure piece of legislation, that $1 trillion infrastructure bill, put people to work, kept people at work, and put this country back after COVID back in the pink. And I went to him one day, I go, why aren't you talking about this more? And they go, well, we told you once. And I'm going, Jesus Christ, have you ever listened to Donald Trump? He goes, make America. He has one freaking note but people listen to it. It's not that what you say, it's how often you say it. They didn't get it. They preached to us about how they're better for us. And like you said, they wouldn't ask questions. They wouldn't ask people what was important. They got screwed. And then they turn around and blame us. And nobody heard about what we were doing. Well, hell, you didn't. If you go scream down a well or scream it somewhere, but damn it, don't blame us because you didn't do your job. And that's the most frustrating part about the Democrats. Now, the Republicans are frustrating because they're a bunch of, butt-munching criminals who, will do anything to get elected, and they support Donald Trump, and that guy is horrible. So at the end of the day, I no matter how low the Republicans lower the bar, the Democrats can barely, if ever, crawl over it. That's not speaking well for American politics, and it doesn't bode well for the future.
No, it's not. But look, Senate Republicans continue to toe the Trump line despite mounting legal and ethical concerns.
Oh, they don't care about that.
How do you think this unwavering loyalty impacts their credibility with independent voters that are going to be essential in 2026 in the midterm election? Because whatever you want to say, and I say it often, you're only going to hear from me reality. If you want to live in a fucking fantasy land, go to Disneyland, right? And go rent the room, right? Go rent the room over at Cinderella's castle. You can have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with Mickey, Minnie, and fucking Goofy for all I care, which I don't, right? But I live in the world of reality, all right? The bottom line is on January 20th, Donald J. Trump is going to be inaugurated as the 47th president. People like Pete Hegseth will become the Secretary of the Department of Defense, and these various different nominees, whether mainstream or lamestream media, whatever the fuck you want to call them, cable news media, will tell you that they should not be. That media. They are unqualified for it. Nobody gives a shit what you have to say. The reality is
that. We know that.
Right, that the Senate Republicans are continuing to toe the Trump line. The Senate Republicans have a majority in the Senate, and they will confirm these people because Trump said so. The problem that you have there is this loyalty pledge. So again, how does it impact their credibility? And what do you think will happen with the voters in 2026?
Well, that's a lot to unpack. First of all, for the congressmen and the senators, if they continue down that path with illegalities, you are a better, they should look to you and go, hey, what happens if I follow Trump too close? What's going to happen to me? Rudy Giuliani would be another one. What happens to people under Trump? They get ground under the bus, and he doesn't give a shit one way or another. So every member of Congress who supports him wholeheartedly, including Marjorie Taylor Dumbass Greene, who thinks that the way to solve wildfires is to seed clouds that don't exist. She's a moron. She's going to have problems. It affects the midterms in that by the midterms, if there are people who, as I said earlier, who are upset with the populism not being followed, then I think at that point in time, going far to the right, the pendulum always swings. How far to the right can you go? I think they've gone that way. Now, there may be some districts where, like, if Marjorie Taylor Greene is bounced out, they could find a one-legged, circus freak that will come in and spout nonsense, and they'll go, yeah, she's one of us, and put her in office.
I found a tool that gives me insights to create a healthy metabolism for my body. And it's managed to improve other aspects of my life as well. And it's called Lumen. So what's Lumen? Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs, and it'll give you a tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, and even stress management. So look, here's how Lumen works. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. And you can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals so that you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. Look, I'm not a kid anymore, and my metabolism, well, it's just not as fast as it used to be. So staying healthy and fit, it's much harder. And anything I can do to gain an advantage, well, look, I'm interested. And here's why. First, your metabolism. It's your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food that you eat into fuel that keeps you going for the day. And because your metabolism is at the center of everything that your body does, optimal metabolic health, it translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, and more. And Lumen, it gives you recommendations to improve your metabolic health. And to the women out there, it'll also help you track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts so that you too can keep your energy and stave off cravings. So look, take the next step right now to improving your health and go to lumen.me/Cohen to get 20% off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.me/Cohen for 20% off your purchase. And thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode.
But in other, particularly in the purple districts and in traditionally conservative, parts of California that are red, parts of New York where there's population, there will be, and even parts of Dakota and North and South Dakota and Minnesota, the Rust Belt, you will find that they won't swing that far right. So there's going to be a pushback, I think. And then you mentioned the press, and it would be helpful, so helpful, if we quit telling people what's wrong with Donald Trump and what's wrong with the Republicans. We know. That's why I get pissed at this report that came out from Jack Smith. Who the shit cares? Okay. You and I are going to get into that in a minute.
But all I want to say is this. You know who they should put up instead of Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Who?
Quagmire. And he's going to get up and he's going to go, giggity, giggity, giggity. Oh, yeah. All right.
And he'd get elected. But we in the press have really fallen down on this job. We talk about Donald Trump going, I want to buy Greenland. I want to buy Greenland. Do we ever, and we make so much out of it, do we ever stop to understand what he really wants out of it? It's the rare earth materials that are used in electronic vehicles. Hello, Elon Musk. It's the rare minerals. He's talking about that. He doesn't give a shit about Greenland. He cares what's under the soil. And do we report it? No. We talk about the hegemony. We talk about the imperial aspirations, and we never, ever address why. Why the Panama Canal? Why do we want to make the 51st state Canada, which, it's 6 provinces and they're already fighting with each other, and that's another story, or Mexico a state? Why? Instead, we focus on the freaky nature and the outlandish circus of Donald Trump without ever looking to see what it's about. And we have to get better.
Yeah, that we do. So let's jump into Jack Smith's, January 6th report, because I woke up this morning at 2 a.m. shocked that a little after 1 a.m. in the morning that they released the report. Yes. And so I started in the middle of the night. Right. I started to read it. And, obviously after reading the first 4 pages, which was Jack Smith's introduction as to why he's releasing it and his rationale for the report to Merrick Garland, I realized that this report has no teeth. It's like a dog with no teeth. You could bite all you want. All you're going to do is get gummed. This January 6th report,
and not a good kind of gumming.
That's for sure. All right. I believe that they think that this report will assist in finally shifting the public narrative on Trump's culpability. I disagree with that. First of all, I don't think they should have released the report. In fact, I think that by releasing the report, all it's doing is it's deepening the divide amongst Americans. There is no, what I'm going back to what I said in the very first second that we started talking. There's no point to the release of this. January 20th, Donald Trump will become president of the United States again. This report needed to have come out a year ago so that, as Jack Smith says,
or three, and
as
he
Jack
should have been
Smith says,
prosecuted, and
that he would have been prosecuted and convicted. Right.
Yeah. But you look at the first 4 pages, how many times does he say, I made my decision. I relied greatly. It is equally important that I make this clear. I don't give a I don't give a shit what he thinks. This is not, this is just a justification for why he spent time doing it. It doesn't explain why he wasn't prosecuted. And by the way, and I understand I'm about 35, 40 pages through it. I have yet to read anything that we didn't already know. Yep. And so what you're doing is you're giving Donald Trump more fodder, more fuel. See, they're out there. They're out to get me. There's once again that terrible Jack Smith. Who gives a shit what's in the report? And yeah, for the future. Okay, I'm glad it was released. It's on the record.
If I hear one more person, including you, talk about the historical necessity of Volume 1, right, and so on, I will jump through this camera and choke you. It is such horse shit. Don't tell me about, you see, again, I'm not worried
known,
about.
Michael. That's the point. It's already known. So, okay,
I'm not
fine.
worrying
it's in one
about.
Place. It's in one place.
I'm not worrying about, one sec, Brian. I'm not worrying about historical value of the document. All that information, as you accurately and have said, and I agree, and I've been saying this all along, we already know all of this. What was the reason why this investigation required interviewing 1,000 people? Why did this report need to include millions of documents? How about take 20 documents, 20 documents, take 5 people, take 10 people, and take it off of that and move the fucking case expeditiously because you want accountability. That's the whole problem. It's also why I say that Judge Juan Merchan's decision, which we're going to get to next, is also wrong on the same thing. If you committed a crime, either you file the indictment, you put the person on trial, and if that person is found guilty, there is a sentencing of accountability. If there is no accountability, there should be no case, because you said it better than I. You're just giving Trump and MAGA more fodder to say that this is a witch hunt.
And by the way, this whole idea of here's the reason why it took so long. The Democrats and the Department of Justice did not think. They underestimated Donald Trump. They thought they had plenty of time to dot every I, cross every T, and he wouldn't get back into office. Or would he even run? The moment he announced 2 years ago that he was running is when they should have filed the charges then. They had enough to do it. By God, like I said, I'm reading through this. I'm going, knew that, interviewed that person. Yeah, I heard that. What the hell took so long to put this crap together? The arrogance and the hubris. One party has no heart, one has no head. They did not have a head for the fight. They thought that Donald Trump was gone. After he left office the first time, he'll never be back. And that was the mistake. That was the tactical error that they made, was in doing that. And then to your point, everyone else, like Judge Merchan, I read his ruling, and he said, well, because the unusual circumstances of this being a president, we respect the office, not the person in it. Mm-hmm. Well, if you if you respect the office, how about you don't let the person like that get in it? That's not respect the office.
You're right. Well, hold on.
No, I'm talking about the voters.
Merchan, right. But Merchan, his decision is his decision. The decision of the plurality of Americans that voted for Trump to return as the 47th president of the United States had nothing to do with this decision, despite the fact that Trump used all of these indictments. He used the impeachments. He used the civil cases in order to say that this is an attack against me and I'm going to protect you. He said all the right things as a branding guy would do. But I want to stay on Merrick Garland for one quick second
Sure.
here, because, you're right. Merrick Garland was insanely slow. And I guess he thought that the calculated move for him was to build the strongest case possible. And because of the nature of this case, with the number of witnesses and the documents, that they had to go slower than molasses through a strainer, that it was a complete and total misstep. Or, as you and I would call it, a complete and total fuck up that actually emboldened
My
Trump.
old man would say a fuck up of biblical proportions. But
Right. It emboldened Trump. It emboldened
Yes.
Trump's allies. And you know what else it did? It gave fodder to the populace in order to listen to what Trump had to say about each and every one of these claims.
Yeah. Well, look, I heard someone in the Department of Justice on Friday when I was talking to a couple of sources of mine in justice, and they said, I just wish we had more time to prosecute Trump. I go, now I'm going to quote my old man again and go, wish in one hand and shit in the other and see which one fills up first. You knew what time you had. You had the manpower. You had the ability to do it. You failed to do it. Merrick Garland came in, and I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt because he should have been a member of the Supreme Court. He's a very smart man. He does things, but apparently he's not that good at being a prosecutor. And I'm sorry, but they did not prosecute this case worth a crap. And it took too long. Like you said, 20 pages, it's all there. You put them on the stand, you indict, you hang. I mean, my God in heaven. And then, don't even start talking about the one where, the Mar-a-Lago case with those, everyone seems to think now that it's okay to keep, classified documents in your bathroom. That's just nuts. And we failed on so many levels to hold this man accountable. And he is like, I remember covering a presidential event years ago when Gary Hart was running for president. He's on a pig farm in Iowa, and they grease up a pig, and he's got to catch the damn pig. And that's Donald Trump. You can grease his ass up. He's running, and he'll squeal, and he'll scream, and he gets away because you just can't catch a squealing pig.
Yeah, well, let me go back to Judge Merchan here, because I've been very, vocal on it. I've been on every television station. I believe Merchan's decision was both judicious as well as appropriate. However,
and there's a big however.
Yeah, a big however here. I have never in my entire law career, and people who I've spoken to who are actually criminal defense attorneys and former prosecutors, have also never heard of unconditional discharge. I never heard of it, to the point that despite what Judge Furman, what's his name, Jesse Furman, the jerk off, turns around and, I went to ChatGPT and I said, unconditional discharge, any case in the United States where an unconditional discharge was the determination in a criminal matter, and could not find it. In fact, I was watching television the other day, and there was like a 30-year prosecutor who turned around and said, I've heard of it. I've just never seen one in my entire career.
I've heard of it.
Right.
In Law 101, it was unconditional, right. But it's like the Gadsden Purchase of rules of law. What's the Gadsden? I've heard of it. What the hell was it? Nobody knows what that is, and nobody knows what unconditional discharge, because you never use it. If they get convicted, they get a fine or something.
So think of it this way. Imagine you're driving down Fifth Avenue, 100 miles an hour, and the speed limit is 25. The cop pulls you over, and then he says, sir, you know how fast you were going? And, Brian turns on and says, yeah, I was doing 100. And then all of a sudden, he turns around and he goes, well, the speed limit's 25. Please slow down, sir, and have a nice day. And then you leave. But you don't just leave. You peel away from there, doing 100 miles an hour down the road again. If there's no accountability, if there's no repercussion, what the hell is the point not to have dismissed the case in the first place, so that people can turn around now and call him the first felon president. Like that's going to
You
give
think
you a
he
stiffy.
cares?
All of a sudden, he doesn't care. He doesn't give two shits.
He wears it like a badge.
Right. It's
It's
also
a badge
what
of
helped.
honor.
It's also what helped to propel him back into the White House.
Yeah.
But, many of us expected that there was going to be a stricter outcome, that after all of the testimony, and I was involved as the key witness in that case, that this thing was going to move expeditiously. They should have done the sentencing 5 months ago, certainly before the election took place. They should have just moved it along. But Donald Trump, say whatever you want about this guy, he is the master of the court delay. There is nobody that has been successful, regardless of how much money that they have, that has been able to delay things more than Donald Trump. All right, it's true. So my question really to you is, what message do you think that this sends to those who believe that Trump continues to evade accountability? Because he does.
Well, the message is rather clear. There is, as Donald Trump said, a two-tier form of justice in the United States. But guess which tier he's on? And guess which tier you're on and I'm on? You went to prison.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second on that?
Yeah.
Not two-tier. Not two-tier.
Three?
Three-tier. Yeah. Donald Trump stands alone. Nobody is on that tier other than he. Not his kids, not the people around him. They're tier 2. The rich, the powerful, those individuals, and the rest of tier 1 is us.
I will amend my statement, Counselor, to admit that introduction of evidence is factual. It is 3. Yeah, he's the one, and there's a 2 that everybody, and we're on 3. By God, if you and I had done any of this crap, I would be staring at 4 walls for the rest of my damn life. Donald Trump gets away with all of it, and has. And, in some regard, you got to go mazel tov, you bastard. You know what you're doing. But when it comes to that, but at the end of the day, you cannot excuse the fact that he has screwed over everyone else for his own benefit, and we all know that, and we have done nothing about that. So to continue for the Democrats or for the prosecution or for the Justice Department or for congressmen or senators to continue to scream about it, I get it. What the hell are you going to do about it? I want to know. What are you going to do about it? Because if this turns around, if it were a Democrat doing this and getting away with it, the Republicans would give birth in the middle of the street to a golden calf, squirted out of their butt at high noon with guns and ammunition following. Just is insane to me that there is such a hypocrisy to the Justice Department that this has occurred, and they don't speak about that or do anything about it.
Well, Brian, as you know from my book, Revenge, because you were incredibly helpful in terms of getting a lot of the inside information from members of the FBI and so on. Bill Barr, and most probably through Donald Trump's approval, weaponized the Department of Justice, right?
Bill,
against
also, yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. Against his critics, meaning me, in order to stifle me. This is not appropriate. We're going to unfortunately see much more of this because he is now emboldened to do this again, and again. And the whole purpose of my book, Revenge, was simply to warn the American people. Nobody has yelled louder from the rooftops than I about what will happen when your First Amendment constitutional right is violated. The document that they wanted me to sign was counterfeit. It didn't matter. All they wanted to do is jail me. When you said that you would be locked away, I was.
Yeah,
I was. The only
remanded, unconstitutionally remanded back to prison. And folks, that's, I let me just point that out. Let me just hammer it home how damn dangerous this is. The first Trump administration, for example, they didn't know how to pull the levers of power. At one point in time, I'll give you a really good example of it. At one point in time, they were talking about putting troops on the southern border. We went in, there were members of the press, I was one of them, went in to ask Judd Deere and others who were in the press office about, and Hogan Gidley specifically, about this situation. Were they going to invoke the Posse Comitatus Act? To do that, they got to go to Congress and get a waiver so they can put troops on the border. And they looked at me and said, "Is that like a guideline? Is that like, what is that?" And I go, "Well, it's a law, and it was passed by Republicans after the Civil War to prevent American troops from operating within the continental United States. You have to get a waiver from Congress." And they looked at me and their eyes glazed over. We started talking for about 10 or 15 minutes. We went back to what we had talked about before about that. And I'll never forget this. Hogan Gidley turned and looked at me and goes, "I'll get back to you about that Hakuna Matata thing." They had no clue what Posse Comitatus was. Not a clue. This time in, Donald Trump knows how to pull the levers of government. He will, in the first administration, he had people who kept stuff from his desk so he wouldn't sign it. This time he's got practically a get out of jail free card from the Supreme Court. He's got people who want to tear it down. They're not traditional Republicans. They owe fealty to Donald Trump. He's going to sign everything that's put in front of him, and they're going to put everything in front of him. And I predict he will be in that White House from Tuesday mornings to Thursday nights. He'll go to Mar-a-Lago. They'll brief once or twice a week. He'll be in for 2 hours every day. There'll be a slew of freaking, executive orders given to him. They're talking about signing 100 of them on the first day. Yep. And they're going to run roughshod. And your rights, Michael, what happened to you is going to happen to a lot more people because they will have in their power the ability to do it. And by God, that's why I'm saying they're going to be dangerous.
Yep. And that's what I was yelling from the rooftops in hopes that what happened to me, making me the first political prisoner ever held by this country, is going to unfortunately become part of the norm. And one of the things that really pisses me the fuck off, is
tell us
Bragg's delay in indicting Trump over the business record fraud, also known as the hush money payment case. All right. 1+ year earlier, Mark Pomerantz turned around and told him, "We have a real case here." It ultimately turns out that 12 independent jurors found him guilty of 34 counts. The fact that Bragg, and what bothers me the most, and it goes right back to this unconditional discharge determination. You have any idea the mental, the emotional, the physical, the financial burden that these types of cases put on somebody who is being touted as the key witness? You understand that as a subpoenaed non-party witness to this, the amount of damage that this causes, including putting me front and center in the ire of the incoming president of the United States of America. You're right. They don't give a fuck. And that's the problem.
So my question, didn't give a fuck. But wait a minute. But here's the point. They didn't give a fuck when they came out with your indictment, and there was and I'll never forget when I read it, unindicted co-conspirator.
Yep.
Donald Trump, co-conspirator. Yep. That he should have been indicted right then and there. Go ahead.
But you see, Alvin Bragg's delay, as far as I'm concerned, I think that hesitancy created a window for Trump to dominate the narrative and once again to paint himself as the victim. Today's episode is brought to you by Ollie. That's clean, fresh nutrition that your dog needs in 5 flavors that they're absolutely going to flip over. And you don't have to be a veterinary nutritionist to know that feeding your dog real whole foods with minimal processing, it's one of the best choices that you can make for their health. It's a perfectly portioned, whole, fresh food diet that's been proven to extend your pup's life, get a load of this, by 2.5 years. And who doesn't want to have more time with their best friend? So with absolutely no harmful fillers, no preservatives, Ollie, it's made in U.S. kitchens with ingredients that are carefully sourced from trusted growers and producers around the world. And because the time between Ollie's gentle cooking and your dog's chowing down is minimal, They don't need preservatives to extend shelf life. With 5 protein first recipes like fresh beef with sweet potatoes, fresh turkey with blueberries, or fresh lamb with cranberries, you might start thinking, damn, my dog eats better than I do. And that's probably true when it comes to Ollie. Okay, so here's how it works. First, you go and you fill out Ollie's 30-second quiz. And what they'll do is they'll create a customized meal plan based on your pup's weight, activity level, and other health information. Ollie then crunches the numbers, and then they recommend the right recipe and daily portions for your precious pup based on hundreds of thousands of real dog results. And listen to this one. You can get your starter box. This is for first timers. Ollie will send you out your pup's first box with 2 weeks worth of meals and a guide on how to gradually switch them over to their new diet. So listen, you can customize this plan easily by Ollie offering 3 meal plans to choose from so that you can go out and choose between a full fresh plan, fresh topper plan, or a mixed plan with their freshly baked recipes for your special fur baby. And they also have treats and supplements. And it's why I say that you should give your pup a fresh start this new year by letting them taste a personalized meal plan from Ollie. So head right now to ollie.com/Cohen and tell them all about your dog. And use code Cohen to get a load of this 60% off your first box of meals when you subscribe today. Plus, they offer a clean bowl guarantee on the first box. So if you're not completely satisfied, you'll get your money back. Again, that's ollie.com/Cohen and enter code Cohen to get 60% off your first box. Again, that's ollie.com/Cohen and enter code Cohen to get 60% off your first box. Start your dog's new year off right with Ollie. That's what he did. Well, yes. Sure. Explain to my audience, please, because you have an inside track kind of on this. Explain why this case should have been brought right as Mark Pomerantz said so that there, even with all the delays that Trump did, we wouldn't right now be January whatever of 2025. We would be January of 2024, and it would be obviously at this point in time, you have the conviction. There's no delay that could possibly have interfered with the election because at this point in time, it wouldn't have happened. It would be happening in another 7 months.
Well, 2 things come to mind. One, justice delayed is justice denied. That's the easiest way to explain what's happening and what happened to you. But number 2, what this shows is that Donald Trump will take any oxygen in the room and suck it up. You cannot give him any. So the delay was not only dilatory to justice, but it enhanced Donald Trump's ability to play. Because the longer you don't do something, the more room you give him to maneuver. You got to keep him on a short leash. And that's one of the things that no one does real well with Donald Trump. He would get mad. I remember sitting in the Rose Garden or in the East Room asking him questions. And he would start to ramble, and I would put him back on target and go, hey, that's not the answer to the question. Why don't you answer the question? And he would get pissed. I told him, if they let this guy in here, nothing but trouble. And he'd go nuts. He can't stand it. He's a child. And so if you don't hold him accountable, if you give him room, if you give him oxygen, he'll suck it up. He'll make something out of it. And it's far more deleterious to justice to delay it because you don't understand that it's like a ripple in a pond. That stone that hits, the ripple effect with what Donald Trump can do with time while you're waiting to get all your ducks in a row is he's going to sink the ducks. And that was the whole damn problem. Boy, there's a mixed metaphor, but that was the whole damn problem with the Justice Department. Again, I go back to the fact that they thought that he wasn't going to get reelected. He couldn't run and he was a laughingstock. And he proved them wrong. And he kept going. And they should have known after what happened to you. I remember talking to my sources in justice going, look, you saw what he did in the Cohen case. Why the hell are you giving him any room to breathe? And they would go, well, we're going to get all our ducks in a row and we're going to put him in prison. Don't you worry. They never did. They never
Right.
did because they were incompetent. They overestimated their own intelligence and underestimated his. And I'm
That's
not
right.
saying he's an intelligent guy, but I'm saying he's a conniver. And I know what a grifter is, man. And that guy grifted, and they were the marks, and he played them well.
Well, you brought something up that I want to touch on for a quick moment here, and that's
Sure.
media's role in this
Yeah.
Trump accountability, because the media has
So,
played a significant role in framing Trump's legal battles. Whether it's Fox News, now Washington Post, even CNN, to a small and almost non-existent extent, MSNBC, but Fox, Newsmax, OAN, CNN, blah, blah, blah. They actually framed his legal battles as almost, again, making Trump into the victim. You think that the press is complicit in enabling his escape from accountability? Or do you think that the press has done enough to shine a light on his misdeeds, despite the fact that there's no accountability at all?
well, we're arrogant. We believe in our own hubris, and we believe we're part of the club. So we're part of the problem in D.C. The arrogance is, but at the same time, of course, we've shined a light on it, but we don't tell people exactly what the light is. They go, hey, there's a light over there. Well, what is it? Well, it could be the, light at the end of the tunnel could be the light from an oncoming freight train, but we don't tell you the difference between the sunshine and the freight train. In fact, we don't know it. And there was a point you bring up, a really good point. At the very beginning of the first Trump administration, I was talking with several editors, friends of mine, who are editors at large newspapers across this country, a couple of them managing editors at television. And they said, hey, Brian, you're in there every day. We're looking to send someone. Who should we send? And I told them this, and I'll maintain this for the rest of my life. The best thing you could do was take the political reporters out of that damn room, the ones who trade on favors, the ones who think they're important, and send me your best cop reporters, because those guys know how to cover a story and how to cover a beat. And they're not going to be bamboozled by bullshit. But the problem is a lot of political reporters, and I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them have been so ingrained in the culture of D.C., they do not understand what their job is to do. And I'll give you a really good example of that. In fact, it was made fun of in a movie, but it's true. Broadcast News was the movie, and they're talking, and I've seen this happen myself. 3 or 4 reporters will be in the White House briefing room. One of them will say, well, what do you think that means? And somebody, they won't send someone to, the administration said something. So they'll ask, what does that mean? Well, I think the administration is afraid that they're going to get, overtaken by the Israelis or whatever it is. And then somebody else will go, well, I think that too. And the third one will go, that's right. And then the first one will go back and go on the air and will say, according to sources close to the White House. Now, technically, we were close to the White House. We were in the Brady briefing room. But those reporters' opinions about what's going on are about as useless as a $3 bill. We are so enamored of what we think, we will broadcast and write opinions as if they are facts. And I know you know this. I know you've seen it from your side. You can get a reporter today. All we do is print and talk about press releases and interviews. Independent, factual, vetting factual information. We don't do much of that. And that's what's got to happen. And that's why Donald Trump is popular, because it's very easy to cover him. He never shuts the fuck up. So we just go, hey, here's the latest crazy bit from Donald Trump. And then we never tell you what's really going on. And I referenced Greenland earlier. You got to understand there is something behind the craziness.
But remember something, too. Donald Trump was just successful once again in that lawsuit against ABC Disney.
Yeah.
Took them for $16 million. They settled. $15 million is going to go as a charitable donation to his presidential library, $1 million for legal fees. But let me tell you what that actually shows you. All right. It shows you, and it showed that the media is full of shit, that they do not do a scintilla of fact checking, which is what he says. They didn't do a scintilla of fact checking on this. They turn around, they started claiming rape, which they knew was wrong, all to disparage me, to hurt my campaign. And he uses that as the denominator for every single event. That every single negative statement that's said about him, he uses that line in order to offset the reality of what's going on. And he is a master of it. That is Donald Trump's superpower. I mean, he should become like a Marvel character. His superpower is to think it and to make you believe it, right? No, it's bullshit. He's like Captain Bullshit, right? Where he can turn around and say something and everybody starts to spew the same thing. Right?
And you know where they got him? You know where they got him? Here's the thing. There's another movie called Absence of Malice, and this is the New York versus Sullivan case. He's a public figure, right? You can say pretty much anything about him because he's a public figure, but not maliciously.
Right.
And where he got them was the fact that they said there was the emails that said, hey, I don't care, or they were malicious towards Donald. That's the fault. I'm sorry. That's the fault of us. If I'm managing people, I don't give a shit. I've had reporters come to me and they go, Brian, here's what I think. And I go, I don't give a shit what you think. I barely care what I think. What do you know? What do you know? That's what we broadcast. That's my bottom line. And ABC, the screw up was that they were able to sell the story of maliciousness. And the bottom line was it was over a very tiny use of a turn of phrase.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. But here's the thing. Think of what they paid to settle and what Fox had to do with Dominion. And therein lies the big, what was it, $300 million, $400 million they had to pay?
That.
Yeah, more than that. Or maybe it was $700 million. It was huge.
700.
But at the end of the day, that's the difference. That was real inaccurate reporting, inactive and inaccurate reporting. And that was the difference. But ABC was afraid of having their emails made public, and so they settled.
It's all about discovery. So look, the hour goes by quick. I have one last question for you because, you're
Michael,
somebody.
It's always fun. I love you.
I
Anytime.
know it goes by quick. So look, you're somebody who's deeply familiar with both the justice system and politics. Do you believe that the system is fundamentally unequipped to address the actions of a former president, especially somebody with Donald's influence?
I think as long as we don't get involved in our government more than we do, that the miscreants, the criminals like Donald Trump can manipulate the system without repercussion because we aren't involved. In most democracies, a 50% or a 60% turnout in voters is abhorrent because that means that, a minority of voters decided for the majority who our government will be. And by God, we don't get involved at the local level. We don't get involved at the state level, and we sure as hell don't get involved at the federal level. If we did, there'd be far more people of caliber, of quality than Marjorie Taylor Greene and J.D. Permanent Eyeliner Vance and Donald Trump. It is an anathema to me. It is abhorrent to me that in this day and age, that those type of people have the ability to manipulate our government when most people, as you and I both know, are decent. If you look at the LA fires and nobody cares down there, and I bailed both of my kids out, evacuated both of them. There are people, there are convicted felons from prison they're helping. There are ordinary, normal people, everyday people helping each other out. That's America. But as long as we don't get involved in government more than we do, then inherently we have problems with people like him getting away with the things that he does. So folks, it's the old Pogo cartoon. We have met the enemy and he is us. It doesn't get better unless we get involved.
And that's why I say 2026 is going to be extremely important. If Donald Trump and his transition team and those that end up getting that get confirmed and so on do a bad job, well, 2026 will not go well. If by chance his belief in burning down the system and then using people who are completely outside of the scope of that specific department, that they do a great job, well, like I said before, Trump will have changed politics even more than he already has forever.
Yeah.
So, Brian, thank you, my brother. Always appreciate you, and I'll be seeing you in a couple of days.
Yep. Love you too, man. Always a pleasure. Drinks on me.
Thank you, pal. Done.